Hello, I am very excited to share with you guys a new tutorial for the month of August. It's called the Call of the Elk. And so I'm going to go ahead and go over all of our supplies, and then I'll go ahead and paint and show you exactly how to do it step by step. So first off, I've got a pre-traced canvas here with my elk on it and his smoke blowing. On your tracer that you're going to have access to, you'll be able to draw in these kind of cool little swirly flower looking designs in gold for the background. I didn't draw them on here because I'm just going to freehand it, but when you go to use your tracer, you'll be able to do it easily if you want to trace them on there. I've also got just a palette paper, and I've got a baby wipe and a paper towel. I've also got some different brushes than I normally use today, and you're welcome to kind of vary them and just use whatever works for you. So I've got a large flat brush. I'm mostly going to be using this for the hair and to fill in the elk's body. And then I've got a large round brush. That's going to kind of help me with his antlers. And then I've also got a small liner brush that's going to be great for his eyes and my signature at the end. And then this is called, I'm going to hold it up a little closer. This is called a mop brush. It's a size 1 mop brush, and it's an Artist Loft brand, level 2. Hold on just a sec. My kiddo just came out. Hey, honey, I'm going to make a video, so I need you to come outside. Okay, so this is that mop brush I was talking about. You do not have to use this. I bought this from Michaels, so you can see it's kind of soft. It's literally when it gets wet, it's like a mop, so it's kind of fun. I use this for the background, and you could use this or this large flat brush if that's easiest for your painters. And then I've also got some gold metallic paint. I'm going to go ahead and get some of that on my canvas, or on my palette paper here. I've got, this is just regular white paint. I'm about ready to switch this container because the lid is just having trouble. Even though I've cut it and I've unclogged it, so I'm going to put it in a container. But that's just basic white. I've got some green. This is sap green. Again, Artist Loft level 1. I've got some Liquitex Basics Burnt Umber. That's going to really help with our elk's body. I've also got, this is kind of a newer color that I've been working with lately. It's called Parchment. It's kind of like an off-white cream color. So that's going to kind of help to make things not so stark and white. And then I love this color. This is Saffron Yellow by Americana. And that's going to be for our pretty background. This design I really like because it's great for a date night. It's great for the fall when it's hunting season with the elk, and they do their elk calls. I don't know if you've ever listened to them. You can probably look it up on YouTube and listen to them, but it's just really cool to hear that, and then just the mist from it getting kind of chilly. So that's kind of exciting. Okay, so first off, I'm going to go ahead and start with my background. So I'm going to dip into my yellow paint and a little bit of my parchment, and I'm just going to kind of have fun with this. And even if I go over my outline a little bit, it's okay. I can still see my pencil through it. And I'm going to kind of just have some fun going around my canvas with these colors on the background. And I'm not afraid to kind of mix them. And I'm kind of going in a circular motion with this mop brush. Sometimes you get it wet before you use it. I don't know if you're familiar with using a mop brush or not. I am going to get it just a little bit wet, just to make this go into the tooth of the paper a little bit better. And see how it's just kind of creating a different kind of look. You can go ahead and paint all around your edges, especially if you're teaching. You might want to tell your painters to do that. If you're just painting this for fun for yourself, that's great too. Maybe come over here back with my yellow. The cool thing about these colors is you can kind of dip into all of them without having to rinse your brush too much. And let's see, let's go. I think I'm gonna go ahead and keep doing the brown and the parchment color all the way around the top, just so that that's covered and done. One of my goals in this membership is to have more paintings that are suitable for both men and women. I know that typically for paint parties we cater to women, and you know, every once in a while there's like one guy at the party, and so I'm thinking, you know, maybe if we had some designs that were a little more masculine, they could be better for date nights or for like a father and son kind of thing. It kind of helps get rid of that stigma that, you know, painting is not for guys. You know, it can be for everybody. And you could even just use that large flat brush to do all this if you don't have a mop brush. It's really easy to cover the edges with the flat brush too. And I'm still just going along with the brown and the cream color. Okay, I'm going to come up on this other edge here, just where the elk's back is at. There's a little bit of yellow there that I did. You could have your painters, you know, vary the edges too if they wanted to. They don't have to be all brown and this parchment color. They could be all yellow, or they could do it as they go along with their background. Okay, I will be right back. My 3-year-old keeps coming out here. My husband's supposed to be helping with her, so. Okay, so now we're gonna keep going on the background here. I'm gonna kind of start dipping into my green a bit, and it just a little bit. I'm gonna get my mop brush wet a little bit more, and see how it's kind of creating like a hunter green. You can do it a brighter green if you want. Add a little more green to your brush. See how that makes it a little bit brighter. I'm still kind of trying to go around my outline, but I can still see my pencil through it for the most part if I go light enough. So you want to just kind of have fun with it, not worry too much about covering that up. I'm going to go back into my parchment color here and get a little bit lighter over here. Even a little more green up here. Here. This is gonna, if we do a little bit lighter around the elk, since it's gonna be a darker tone, it's gonna make him pop a little bit more. So I'm trying to do a little more of the parchment around him, and then I'm gonna get back into my yellow. You see how I'm not worrying too much about if I go over that line, because I can still see my pencil through it. So let's make this a little bit brighter up in here. this is where his breath is breathing as he's doing his elk call. And I'm not gonna lie, after I made this design, I thought, oh my gosh, it kind of looks like he's like blowing out smoke or something. So if you're feeling that way when you look at the design, just remember and maybe just check out what an elk call is, in the fall, and assure your painters that that's what it's about. It's not about smoking, but there are I don't know if you guys have heard of paint and smokes or smoke and paint or something. So some people do enjoy that. I personally don't. My parents growing up smoked a lot in the house, and so I ended up developing asthma from secondhand smoke, and I've pretty much gotten rid of my asthma now by doing a lot of like cardio exercise and that sort of thing. But it was like hard to live with growing up, and so I don't smoke, but I know some people, that's how they relax more than drinking. So, and I live over in Washington where certain things are legal that aren't legal in other places. So if you live somewhere where that's something you would be interested in teaching and offering to people, then that's some kind of up to you. And this could be a design that people might be interested in for that. I don't know. Have to kind of play with that idea. Okay, I'm going to keep working back into my parchment color here. We're almost done with the background. See how that parchment color, it just kind of makes things a little bit less, it's not too bright. Kind of tones things down a little bit. Let's put some yellow down. And you can kind of play around. You don't have to do it exactly like the yellow where I've got my yellow, green where I've got my green. You could do it wherever you'd like. Put some green down in here. And you can just practice with that circular motion. And if you didn't have a mop brush and you didn't want to buy like, a million mop brushes for your painters either, because I know that could be expensive. I don't know. I think I got this on sale. I can't remember how much I paid for it. But if that wasn't an option, you could definitely use your large flat brush and do like crisscrosses, or you could still try to do like the circular look. Kind of play with it and see what you like. Okay, so now I'm gonna add a nice touch of, I'm done with that mop brush, except for I do want to blend here a little bit, but we're gonna cover that with our smoke anyway. So this whole area doesn't have to be perfect because you're gonna end up having him, breathing his stuff here. So I'm gonna go ahead and add in with this large round brush, my little fun rose like swirls in the background. This is usually how I paint these when I'm teaching some certain kinds of flowers that are really easy. So the way that I teach it is I tell my painters, and you can tell this to yourself too if you're just starting out and not sure how to do this style, is I do kind of a parentheses shape or like a C shape, and it's kind of like it's hugging each other like this with the strokes. So, or like if you think of a koi fish, like two koi that are kind of like a yin yang, where they're kind of hugging each other. So one's going this way and then the other one's going to kind of wrap around it. And you can kind of play with that on a separate sheet before you decided to go for it on this if you wanted to. But if you just watch how I do it, I just kind of go around in a circle with them and have fun with it. Again, this part is on the tracer if you're unsure about freehanding it. I wasn't sure if some of the parts would get completely covered or not if I painted over it, but I think because if you go light on your background, I think your pencil will still show through pretty well. And it's kind of nice to, if it's offset, it'll look a little more natural if you have some kind of going off the edge. And this just kind of makes things look a little more interesting on your background. When people go to look at your painting and what you're doing. Izzy, I need you to go inside, please. Thank you. The kids are like, my husband was trying to hurry and mow the lawn and so that I can do this video because it's going to be 111 here today. And so I work in my garage, and really the best time to be out here is early in the morning, not even late at night because it's super humid, you know. And so the kids are trying to all come out here and be with me. On the floor. Okay, I need you to go talk to Daddy about it, okay? Okay, if you sit still and be quiet, you can stay here, but if not, you're going to have to go. Okay. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to let it dry before I do his fun, like, you know, breath coming out here. This has quite a bit of me. I'm going to take some of that off. There we go. Okay, now I'm ready to work on the elk. So I'm going to just take that large round brush. I rinsed and dried it. And I'm going to dip a little bit into my brown and a little bit into my parchment color so that I'm double loading. I'm not mixing right on my palette. I just dipped into both. And then I'm just going to start to color in where his antlers are at. And that kind of striated look is going to help them to look a little more realistic. And this parchment color does kind of look like a bone type tone. He's got another antler poking up over here. Marina, go inside. You know, it's a fly. It's okay, go inside. Okay, go inside. Okay, just one moment. I'm going to put her back inside. Okay, so I think my husband had mowed the lawn. I think he's in the shower, and that's why we're trying to beat the heat, but do this at the same time. Okay, so I'm still just double loading. I'm going all the way up the antler, each one of the antlers. And like I said, I went light enough on the background that I can still see where my antlers are at. There's 3 here. It actually had, like, the reference photo I was using had this whole antler went way, way back, like really cool, kind of like a reindeer. But I didn't have enough room to fit it on the canvas and still have like his breath. So I was like, oh darn, you know, wasn't able to show you guys that. But they do have really big antlers. And I grew up in Idaho, and we were in southeast Idaho, about an hour or 2 away from Jackson Hole in Wyoming and Yellowstone National Park. And so sometimes we go to the park, and we always wanted to see like a bear or a moose or a wolf, you know, something cool like they show on TV that you'd see in Yellowstone, and we always just saw elk. There was always just lots and lots of elk. So it was kind of a fun memory as a child to always see those, and we would go and check out Old Faithful. Um, Although I don't know, I thought I heard recently that Old Faithful isn't running as much anymore. Not sure. Okay, so now I've got the horns in. I think I'm going to go a little bit darker on some of them, and I'm going to end up kind of outlining them with some highlights anyways. So this is going to look like they're a little bit more separated and defined here later on. Let's do a little more brown on this one. Just kind of trying to get where like one side has a little bit of a shadow. Maybe up underneath here. See, you can really just play with it and blend these out. And then there's this other horn is separated from that one, so I'm going to make it a little bit darker. Okay, so I'm going to add in my highlights later. So for now, I'm going to get started on his face and the fur. And I know it might seem intimidating to do like the fur, but I'm going to show you that it's super, super easy. So as I'm coming into this area, I'm going to keep using this brush, just a little bit of the parchment, but a little more brown, because I want to keep this area kind of dark. And I'm literally just filling it in just like a coloring page with the brown. And then as I come into his face, this is kind of his eyebrow, and then I have outlined on your tracer where it's going to be a lighter brown and a darker brown. So now I'm going to do all dark brown in through his face. I'm just outlining where his nose is at. And I'm also going to kind of get up under where his eyebrow is, just to show. And again, I've got this outlined around his eye here, so you can see where that's going to be a lighter tone and a darker tone. So just going around that. So this area here around the eye is going to be a lighter brown. A little bit darker here for the eyebrow. Might even go in with a little bit of black there. And this is where you just kind of got to imagine where the hair is growing. So it's probably growing up his nose, so I'm going to go back and forth a little bit here. And as I come down here, along the jawline, it's going to be going downward. So now I'm just going to start using small, shorter strokes that kind of give an idea of hair a little bit more. But it's still pretty dark. And he's also got this nostril hanging out behind there, so you might want to go in with a smaller brush to fill it in. I just use the bigger brush really quick, but it might be easier with a smaller brush. Okay, now I'm going to go in a little bit where this ear is at. So it's dark around this edge. dark up underneath. And then I'm going to get in here, make that a darker brown, and then we'll go in with our parchment and fill in this lighter color. Before we do that, we're going to go ahead and get in here with a different brush and make the fur nice and hairy. So I'm going to put that one in my paint water, and I'm switching over to my large flat brush, and I'm going to just double load just like we did at first with brown and parchment. So I've got brown and parchment on my paper and now, or on my brush, and now I'm just gonna pull with my brush so it's like perpendicular to my canvas. Pull it down in short. I'd say these are about, because this is a 16 by 20 inch canvas, these are about 2-inch strokes that I'm doing. Their fur gets kind of long here. I'm not going to worry too much about this edge because we're going to go over the top of this darker tone with that lighter color. They have kind of a cream color on their back and around their eyes. And so I'm just making sure I'm filling in some of these white spots, just getting in the tooth of the canvas. And this is where it just takes some time to go through and do this, but it's really easy. And it's going to be really easy for your painters too if you're teaching this. See how it's really starting to look like fur. In the reference photo I was using, it was actually like wet looking, but I didn't want you guys have to worry about trying to create a wet look, so we're just making it look like fur. And you might have some areas that are darker and some areas that are lighter, and that's totally normal. See, this is a little lighter. I can go in and add some darker fur there if I want to. And then here along the edge of the neck, I'm just going to go right into my background. See how it makes it look like fur? And then this area is a little darker too, actually. Right underneath. We could even go in with a little bit of black, which I'm going to have to grab some. That is one thing I forgot to grab. Make like a black brown to go in this area if you wanted to. We will outline a few things with black here towards the end, so that is another color that you'll need. Kind of always need black for lots of stuff. Okay, now I'm gonna let that hang out in my paint water. I'm gonna rinse my large round brush and start working with this parchment color a little bit more. I think I need just a little bit more paint. It's almost gone. I'm surprised how much I've been using this because I didn't buy it too long ago. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to get back into the parchment and just a little bit of brown and come in where his mouth is at and just outline that area. And right up along the top portion of his mouth here. it'll add just a little natural highlight along that part of his nostril. We're going to get in here with a little bit of black and brown, so I'm going to leave that for now. I'm going to get in around his eye here, so if you just pull that round brush from the outer edge of that eye up, it'll make kind of that hairy look. And of course, we'll go in and outline and add the details on the eye too. And don't be afraid if you go over your line edge here anyways, it'll end up being okay. Because I can still see through the paint where the eye's at. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and fill in the ear. I'm just moving right along with these same colors. I'm going to add some extra highlights with this ear here in a bit anyways. And I'm going to start pulling this on down and around. And just kind of overlapping onto this other layer that he's got going. I'm just ready to start pulling it down into the rest of his fur. So I'm starting, here's his back line, which we'll add a highlight here in a little bit, but just so you see where I'm going. And I'm just pulling from that line downward with short strokes. And you could do the whole stroke from the back down actually, if you wanted to. You could do this section with the large round brush too, or large flat brush, I mean, that would be fine too. Okay, I think we've got most of our fur going. I'm gonna grab my black really quick. Just gonna use this Americana. Sorry, the flies are coming out, and we have the garage door open, so they're all. Okay, so I'm gonna get, this is just the Americana black. You could use any black paint really. You could use the Liquitex Basics too. It's just a little thicker. I'm gonna make like a black brown. Just mix a little bit of brown with my black, and I'm just gonna come and kind of outline underneath the jaw here. Do a little bit darker with some of the fur on here and up. Maybe down right there. And kind of play with it and decide. I'm going to go and add a little bit of dark where his eyebrows at, so it kind of stands out a little bit. You can kind of edge it a little bit so it looks kind of like his fur. And then I'm also going to add a little bit around this edge of his ear. And I think that's pretty good. We'll use a smaller brush to outline around his mouth and get in where his eyes at. So now I'm going to switch back over to my large round brush. I'm going to try to fill in his little nostril with that black brown tone. A little more black. You could even add a little on the ear too if you wanted to, and even up underneath here. Okay, now I think we're ready to get into some of these smaller details. So I'm going to switch over to my small round brush and dip into my brown paint. I'm going to kind of get up underneath here and underneath here just to outline those antlers a little bit better. And then I'm going to go ahead and fill out the area underneath the eye. just that brown, and I'm using that smaller brush. I'm going to fill out the eyelid here above the eye. And then I'm going to go ahead and fill in the iris brown too, but I'm going to add a hint of gold to it just to make it pop. So I'll go ahead and dip into my gold and just lay it right on top of it. Using just a little more. Okay. And you can rinse and dry your brush, or I just wiped with my baby wipe. I'm switching over to my black and filling in the pupil of the eye, leaving a white highlight. And then I'm just going to outline the eye. So around that almond shape. And I'm also going to outline around the eye itself. And you could even go down a little bit into some of that brown fur if you wanted to. That's more of a personal preference. Okay, I'm gonna, because we're still outlining a little bit. We're not gonna get crazy with the outlining. I know a lot of people at the end do kind of struggle with that, especially when they've had some drinks. So I'm gonna go ahead and just come along on the nose, just so it pops out against the background and shows where his mouth is at. And then just kind of outlining the rest of his bottom jaw here. And I think I'll even add an extra little outline. Let's outline his nostril over here, and the other one right here. Okay, so I'm pretty content with that. Now we can kind of add our finishing touches and highlight it, and then add the breath, which is the fun part. I feel like it's the most fun part. Okay, so for adding the highlights, I'm going to switch back over to my large flat brush. Rinse and dry it, dip into my white. I'm going to just pull a line along his back, and then just pull from that line down a little bit in these kind of, if you think of like a slash way. And then I'm going to go in on his ear here and do a little highlight there, a little highlight there. Let's also add a little bit here. And then I'm going to go along all the tops of the antlers and add a highlight on the top of each antler. And if using this larger brush is kind of difficult, you can always just use the smaller brush. Use whichever one. I always tell my painters, use the one that feels the most comfortable to you. I'm going to add a little bit of white like on the top part of his eye here. Just kind of pulling. And again, you can switch to a smaller brush if you prefer, but I like the kind of hairy look this one gives. And then I'm going to switch over, because with the flat brush, it's hard to get around edges. So I'm going to switch over to my large round brush to add these extra highlights to the front of the mouth, just to make them stand out. Okay, so here's the fun part. So I'm going to bring this a little closer so that you guys can see a little bit better where we're at so far and see his eye. Hopefully that helps to see I did that. his mouth and see the metallic. Isn't that fun? Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and add the breath. So I'm gonna turn this, make sure you guys can see it well. So I'm gonna switch back over to that mop brush. I'm rinsing and drying it. I'm gonna rinse a little bit better. It's still got some yellow in it. And then I'm gonna dip into my white paint. And I'm gonna start by kind of experimenting on my palette paper, just going in a little circle to see how thick it is. And then I'm going to just start pulling and going in kind of loopy circles. So I'm going around this way, and then I can go back around the other way and just pulling around the canvas as I go. Just creating that kind of smoky, not smoke, that's, I keep thinking it like looks like smoke, but that foggy breath look that they have. So I'm going to make you guys all think of smoke now when we go to teach it. I apologize for that. I just didn't realize, like, after that, I was like, oh, I guess this guy's kind of like smoke. And now I'm just kind of softening it where there's a little bit of extra paint. I kind of pulled it from where his mouth is at first and then went up. And that's pretty much it. It's really, really simple and easy. I'm going to hold this closer so you guys can see. I even thought that, you know, if you guys wanted to, you could like have him saying something. You could have like a speech bubble and have him say something in it if your painters wanted to do that. That's kind of a fun option too. Okay, that's pretty much it. I'm going to go ahead and add my signature. I'm going to do black here and just go over in the corner. And that's it. So again, I'm going to kind of hold it up so you guys can see. Please, if you guys have any questions at all after this tutorial, if you need help with anything, reach out. You can email me, message me, text me. My email address is just hollyzepeda@icloud.com. My phone number is 509-405-9879. And, you know, you can message me on Facebook anytime. So I appreciate you watching this I want to say tortuga, like a Spanish turtle. That's how you say turtle in Spanish. Tutorial. Thank you for watching this tutorial, and I'm excited to see how you guys end up painting this and teaching your groups. I'll talk to you later. Have a good one. Bye.